West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy with Chef Justice Putnam. Netrootsradio.com.
Je voudrais du soleil vert, des dentelles et des théières, des photos de bord de mer, dans mon jardin d'hiver. Je voudrais de la lumière, comme en Nouvelle-Angleterre. Je veux changer d'atmosphère, dans mon jardin d'hiver. Ma fleur sous la pluie de novembre, tes mains qui courent, je n'en peux plus de t'attendre. Les années passent, il est loin, là je tombe. Nul ne peut nous entendre. Je voudrais du Fred Astaire, revoir un latte.
The Attorney General of Washington, D.C. is taking matters into his own hands. This week, he sued the Proud Boys and the Oath Keepers for their role in the violent January 6 attack on the Capitol in the first civil suit by a state or city seeking to hold the far-right extremist groups accountable for the insurrection. They're accused of violating the 1871 Ku Klux Klan Act, a Reconstruction-era law designed to protect black citizens from violence and intimidation by the KKK. And joining me now is the Attorney General of the District of Columbia, Karl Racine. Attorney General Racine, thank you very much for coming to the Sunday Show.
Good morning, Jonathan.
Good morning. Let me read you a statement from the defendants, and I'm going to put it up here on the screen. It says, "You can't file a fantasy in court," said Jonathan Mosley, who represents Zachary Rell, president of the Philadelphia Proud Boys chapter, and Kelly Meggs, an Oath Keeper from Florida. There were clearly violent people who assaulted police that day, but that wasn't the Proud Boys or the Oath Keepers. Your reaction to that?
Well, I look forward to meeting opposing counsel in court. I think your prior guest, Neil Katyal, as you said, had the best line of the day, which is liars lie and they can't even lie in front of a mirror. Look, our case is detailed, it's specific, it's document focused, text focused, and video focused. And what it established is that the Proud Boys, the Oath Keepers, and 30 plus individuals conspired, planned, organized, and participated on an attempt to take away our freedom. They injured the District of Columbia and its Metropolitan Police Department officers. And as a result of their actions, the District of Columbia suffered injuries. And I have to tell you, Jonathan, police officers died after the event. In the case of DC, 3 by suicide.
Mm-hmm. You know, I want to put up on the screen for viewers a portion of your lawsuit where you write, "In the wake of this assault, the Capitol was left in shambles, with the district left to deal with the aftermath of the violent disruption to what should have been the peaceful transition of presidential power. The district seeks compensatory, statutory, and punitive relief, and by filing this action intends to make clear that it will not countenance the use of violence against the district, including its police officers."
Well, that's exactly right. 850 Metropolitan Police Department officers went to the Capitol, buttressed the Capitol Police, of course, who were overwhelmed. Questions are being properly asked. Thank God for the January 6th committee. Thank God for Liz Cheney's honesty. And thank God for their thoroughness. What we're going to do is hit these defendants where it counts. And the evidence is that when you hit defendants like these hate groups where it counts, they scatter, they run, They're no longer able to organize hateful and violent acts like that which occurred on January 6th.
You know, I should have told this control room element 5, because your lawsuit reminded me very much of the successful lawsuit that was just argued down in Charlottesville, where now they're ordered to pay the folks who were part of the Unite the Right rally, Spencer, Kessler, and Cantwell, and others, ordered to pay $26 million in compensatory and punitive damages. Does the ruling in that case give you hope that you'll be successful in your case?
Jonathan, that case was extraordinary. I want to give credit to the Integrity First for America and those exceptional lawyers who worked hard to bring justice in Charlottesville. Of course, that gives us a lot of momentum. Let me tell you, for example, what some of the defendants in the Charlottesville case had to say about that lawsuit. One defendant said, and tweeted this, "Oh my goodness, this lawsuit bankrupted me, and it's destroyed my neo-Nazi traditionalist worker party." Another defendant called the lawsuit financially crippling, totally detrimental. Another defendant said, "We've got to go underground." That's what the District of Columbia's lawsuit, let me emphasize this, the only time a city or state has ever sued hate groups like this is the District of Columbia, standing up for justice and the rule of law and our freedom and democracy.
Attorney General Racine, in the 1 minute that we have left, how worried are you that we could see a repeat of the insurrection on the anniversary of the insurrection? I'm asking that question because on my ride here to the studio this morning, we go by the Capitol and I noticed tall fencing on the Capitol building itself this morning. Is that in preparation or, to guard against a copycat insurrection?
Let me say a couple things about that. First, back to the lawsuit. When you sue, you seek for justice and you sue to deter future conduct. That's what we're trying to do, to make sure it never happens again. As to the security of the Capitol, Jonathan, I live here. I always walk to the Capitol. I noticed what you noticed. I don't know anything about that other than what I do monitor is the chatter online. And yes, there's a lot of chatter around doing other acts that would be violent, including at the Capitol.
One more, we're out of time, but I got to ask you this, since you've also said that you've seen it. I saw the high fencing on the west front of the Capitol. Is that where you saw it, or did you see it on the east front?
Same place, west side of the Capitol. That's where I was. I walked really early, both yesterday and today. I don't know how much time we have, Jonathan. It's always been my joy to say, please give your Aunt Gloria my best for a happy holiday season.
It is Monday, the 20th of December of 2021, and you are in West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy. I am your chef de cuisine, Justice Putnam. Gunner the English Bulldog is our snoozing sous chef. And our daily special is River City Hash Mondays. That's right. It's the beginning of the Christmas week. And we repurposed what was left over from the weekend into something delightful for today. At least, we hope it is. Add a little bit of whipped cream. Maybe everything will turn out fine. Just a little bit. Okay, so how's your Christmas week starting off? Did you get any coal in your stocking already? Can you tell? It's there. Yeah, we're talking about Joe Manchin. I don't know. Is he that stupid? I mean, the bill that he says needs to be paid for is paid for. I know. Oh, yes, well, Joe Biden has too many irons on his plate. Yeah, well, you know what? We're Democrats. We can do that. We're able to juggle things. I mean, who is able to just do one or two things? Who is expected to only be able to do one or two things? Come on. That's a stupid excuse. Somebody got to Manchin, And on the other hand, it may have been the gambit all along. Stall, hold the football out, and then as soon as it's going to get kicked through the goalpost, pull the football away. Joe Manchin pulled a Lucy. Maybe Joe Manchin is Lucy. I don't know. It's very suspicious now, isn't it? Right before Christmas, make Joe Biden look bad. The signature present, the biggest gift under the tree, is empty. See how those Democrats fail. They can't do anything. You know, when you're being sabotaged by Nazis, maybe it's time to stop dealing with Nazis. Maybe Nazis should not even be allowed to be in government. If all that they do is tear down America, how many decades did we hear the law and order types of that day say, the hippies, the liberals, all they want to do is hate America. Well, here's a party that absolutely hates America. And the thing that they hate more than America are Americans. You know, you and me. They hate us. I would say rhetorically it's about time. But I know for a fact that we know that already. We've been sounding that alarm for a long time. To the point where, I guess, you know, it's like crying wolf. Except in this story of crying wolf, the wolf comes in and decimates the whole household every single time. And now it's become so common. I mean, look, we're sending our kids to schools with bulletproof backpacks. Oh, they'll be safe now. My kid is more traumatized from having to wear a mask than diving under desks and hiding in closets in a mass shooter drill, you know. Masks are such an impingement upon our freedom. It impinges my freedom. But yeah, you know, send your kids to school and let them get shot up. Don't take the guns away. They want to get rid of vaccines, but they don't want to get rid of guns. Because I got to tell you, they can't get rid of the vaccines unless they have the guns. Which reminds me, wow, over the weekend, the anti-vax movement was just totally spamming, at least here in Southern Oregon. I suspect it's elsewhere too. But they were spamming the Southern Oregon Facebook group pages. Almost like it was coordinated. Almost. You know, but this happens during the run-up to each election. We get these divisive memes put out there. And I also like how some purport to be real people, but they don't put their real name out there like they're supposed to, right? You're not really supposed to have a fake name to be on Facebook, but people get away with it all the time because that's how Facebook is. So there's those who purport to be real people, members of this community, and you know, they want to tell you that they're the real Americans, and you, meaning us, because we vote Democratic, we're not real Americans. We're traitors to America. We're selling out to foreign nationals. We think foreign nationals are more important than the people who were like, you know, white America. They're not quite ready to say white America, but that's exactly what they mean. And I mentioned that it sounded pretty Russian to me, what they were purporting. Especially when they're trying to say that I'm not a real American. That my family is not really American. Who cares anyway, ultimately? I mean, we're all stardust. We're all going to be consumed in cosmic fire. It doesn't really matter if I'm an American or Canadian. Well, you know, I guess for the time that we're here, it is important to some. But since I like the idea of representative democracy while we're on this plane of existence, I don't want a bunch of Nazis taking it away. and then claiming that they are the real Americans. Yeah. You're a good Republican, and a good Republican is just like a good German from the days of yore. Yore. Y-O-R-E. Just, we know. The demographic for this show is pretty much, we skew a little bit older. Yeah, because we are. And I don't know, we actually are a bit educated now, aren't we? Jeez. Okay, so you got that Marjorie Taylor Greene out there spewing her hate. You had Trump over the weekend giving like the most anti-Semitic statement that one could give to an Israeli journalist, too. I know that he's right-wing, but still. I got to tell you, the American Jewish community wasn't very happy because it was so blatant and it was so wrong. And the guy's just like, oh, I don't care, And, I do love the argument. You would think that his heart would be softened since his grandkids are Jewish. Give me a break. Trump, he doesn't care about anybody. I don't know. Where's Barron? Yeah, where is Barron? Oh, here's another meme that I saw run out there, and I don't understand what prompted this, but this woman, Bridget, I can't remember her last name, but she's an obvious right-wing troll type. Purports to be some sort of journalist, I think, or opinion maker, more like it. But she was out there tweeting, be more like Melania and not Michelle Obama. What? This woman said that mothers should be raising their daughters to be more like Melania and not like Michelle. And I don't know. I like sexy, trashy, types like everybody else. Everybody. But I don't like it when they're racist birthers. Okay. Do not raise your daughters to be soft porn, pole dancing, racist birther. Now, they can be, soft porn, pole dancers, but the racist birther, I think, is like the disqualifying part. And, I don't know, maybe Michelle gets freaky. That's fine. I have no problem with it. But she is an accomplished person. She doesn't have to lie on an Einstein visa, for instance. Okay? Now I know that maybe Melania has some special talents, but so did Nancy Reagan, from what I hear. A few others, too. But Nancy was in the news for that particular talent. And I'm sure Melania, maybe. I don't know. On the other hand, maybe Melania doesn't get freaky in real life. You never know. So, yeah, moms, do raise your daughters to be like Michelle. Do not raise them to be like Melania. All right? Shitty interior design. She hated Christmas. Who hates Christmas? You don't even have to be Christian to like Christmas. Jeez, it's the season of giving. It's peace and goodwill to all. Who's against that? I'll tell you who is. Nazis. They cannot stand goodwill to all. Their very being of being Nazis precludes the idea of extending goodwill to all. It goes against the Nazi prime directive. All right. Well, you know how we... Now, I'm sorry I'm making the jump from Nazis to Joe Manchin. I don't mean to, but I am. How we negate the influence of a Joe Manchin. Yeah, maybe we need 60 senators. It can be done, in spite of the obstacles put in our way. But we got to do it. Okay? We're not going to get anybody liberal in West Virginia, apparently. That was made very clear to me. There's not enough of a, quote, liberal bloc. And, this is another pet peeve I have. Joe Manchin is not a moderate. He's a conservadem. He's an extremist. He's right-wing. He is not a moderate. Schumer might be a moderate, but not Joe Manchin. Stop calling Joe Manchin a moderate like he's the voice of reason. He's an extremist. He's a conservative. My God. I know it's a pet peeve, but still. Well, I could go on, and we bought to get into the curated part of the show because, as you know, that's how we center ourselves. Otherwise, we might just go on and on. Well, at the top, of course, that was the breakdown of the D.C. Attorney General filing a civil suit against the Proud Boys and Oath Keepers using a anti-KKK law. I should also add it's a very similar one that brought down Metzger and his neo-Nazis when they killed that black kid in Portland, Oregon back in the day. Bankrupted that asshole. That's how you do it. That's how they did it back in the day. Get these KKK chapters to pay some big bucks for all their crimes. You can't get them in the law because, a jury of their peers means, a jury of their peers. But the civil lawsuits is how we need to go after these, insurgents for now. On the rest of the menu, anti-vax groups are using deceptive videos to link athlete deaths with COVID vaccine shots. A pipeline firm is fighting a regulator's order to name Iowa landowners in the path of its $4.5 billion project. Yeah, their argument is if the landowners know that they're in the path, they may not want it. Yeah, no shit, Sherlock. And NASA is shooting, no pun intended, NASA is shooting for Christmas Eve to launch the James Webb Space Telescope. I love Hubble, but it's getting old now. After the break, we move to the chef's table where Poles protested across the country to defend media freedom under vicious assault by the right-wing government. Wow, let's do it here. And hundreds of thousands of people marched to the presidential palace in Sudan's capital in protest of the October 25th military coup. All that and more on West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy. Bon appetit. Bottom of our homepage at netrootsradio.com. To the right of the page is the chat room link, and the chat room is monitored by Kelly Lincoln. Thank you, Kelly. To the left of that chat room link, across the page near the bottom of the homepage at netrootsradio.com is the link to our Patreon page. Do please become a recurring Patreon of Netroots Radio when you can. I know things are a bit filled up with the holidays, so when you're able, if you could afford to send us the equivalent of what you might spend on, say, how about an espresso-type coffee drink? If you could send those funds to us once a month, we're able to pool those with resources that we are able to pull out of our pockets. And then we're able to pay our bills, fly under the radar, and continue this powerhouse of resistance against hostile forces arrayed against the United States of America and all that it stands for. So thank you for your generosity. And I'm going to keep saying this. After the first of the year, we'll be in a little bit of a countdown for our 11th year of this powerhouse of resistance. And we would really be unable to do it without you. Thank you. If you would like to follow Netroots Radio on Twitter, do so at Netroots Radio. Tom takes care of that, and we thank Tom for doing so. Follow me on Twitter at Justice Putnam. I incidentally post the show notes and links diary on Daily Kos about 10 minutes before showtime. And then incidentally, I just get that posted on Twitter and other social media platforms so that people can find the show notes and links, because that's important to what we do here. At least we consider it so. You can follow the show on Twitter at Cookbook West and pick up podcasts by way of Spreaker, Stitcher, TuneIn, iHeart, YouTube, iTunes, and wherever podcasts can be found. Hey, sometimes I am so busy that when I get an opportunity to take in a movie recently, on cable, it's already started, and I hate that. I actually want to see the credits, everything building up. And certainly if I'm diving into it 15 minutes to a half an hour in, I usually just forego the movie. But I was able to somehow watch this whole movie that's entitled The Last Black Man in San Francisco. And you got to see it. It's on Showtime. And it is a really good movie on many, many levels. If all you want to see is San Francisco, this is the movie to see, because you're going to see San Francisco unlike the Hollywood version where you see all the cliched parts. Oh, yeah, of course, you're going to see the cliched parts. But it's juxtaposed with, real San Francisco. And a very heartfelt movie, almost a coming-of-age story. A bit of Jack London is in there, for those of you who might know West Coast literature and its impact on art still on the West Coast. It's really a heartfelt movie. I usually gauge them now on how I cry. And I had a few tears well up for this movie, and I think that it would be a good one to be on it could be on your Christmas viewing. I think this would be a good Christmas movie. Yes, so let's get into this first offering here in the Bistro Cafe of West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy. It comes out of the Associated Press by Angelo Fischera and Sophia Tulp. Jake West was a seemingly healthy 17-year-old when he collapsed during high school football practice in Indiana and died of sudden cardiac arrest. A video widely shared online falsely suggests COVID-19 vaccination is to blame, weaving headlines about him into a rapid-fire compilation of news coverage about athletes collapsing. But the vaccine played no role in young West's death. He died from an undiagnosed heart condition in 2013, 7 years before the pandemic began. The video is just one example of many similar compilations circulating on the internet that uses deceptive tactics to link vaccines to a supposed wave of deaths and illness among the healthiest people, often athletes, a claim for which medical experts say there is no supporting evidence. The clips inundate viewers with a barrage of stories and headlines delivered without context, some translated from other languages and offering few details people can check on their own. They are highly effective at spreading misinformation, using a strategy that sows doubt and bypasses critical analysis, capitalizing on emotion, according to Norbert Schwartz, a professor of psychology and marketing at the University of Southern California. Well, how else do you think they were able to sell a pet rock? It's designed to foster the feeling that the vaccines may be risky, Schwartz said. You're doing that with material that seems real because it is real. All of these events actually happened. They just happen to have nothing to do with vaccines. The nearly 4-minute montage that included West's story originated on the Highwire, an online talk show hosted by Del Bigtree that is popular among the anti-vaccine community and gradually became magnified via social media. It takes the viewer through more than 50 cases of medical emergencies in rapid succession, while eerie music plays and a beating heart pulses, pump, 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 in the background, ending with somber images of medics and teammates rushing to fallen athletes. Wow, this is sort of like what they did in Nazi Germany. After airing the video, Big Tree noted on his show that there is no proof vaccines were responsible for the cases, even while suggesting they may be. All of these sports are mandating this vaccine on everybody in order to play, and I can only ask the very simple question. Do you ever remember hearing a story of an athlete having a heart attack on the field? Big Tree said. Well, yeah, of course. Have you ever seen somebody playing with a dark helmet in 102-degree weather, falling over from heat prostration and dying of a heart attack? Yes, I have. Apparently, this guy never played football. Yet cases of sudden cardiac arrest, an abrupt malfunction of the heart, different from a heart attack, have long been documented among young athletes. One analysis based on 2016 Emergency Medical Services data estimated that there are more than 23,000 pediatric out-of-hospital cardiac arrests in the U.S. annually, 4,000 of which were caused by primarily cardiac issues. For West family members who have worked to raise awareness about sudden cardiac arrest through their Play for Jake Foundation, seeing his story co-opted in the service of spreading anti-vaccine misinformation has been distressing. His mother, Julie West, questioned whether those behind the videos ever considered the feelings of the parents, and I can answer that. No! My tragedy of losing my son is always upsetting, and to think that somebody would use that for their gain is very upsetting, she said. It's mind-boggling to me that there are people out there like that want to spread or have their own agenda. Associated Press staff brings us this next offering here in the Bistro Cafe of West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy, River City Hash Mondays. A company that wants to build a pipeline to carry carbon dioxide from ethanol plants in Iowa and several other states to North Dakota where it would be stored underground is fighting Iowa regulators' order to reveal the names of businesses and governments in the path of the $4.5 billion project. Summit Carbon Solutions has appealed to the Iowa Utilities Board and asked a court to intervene because it says the order would force it to identify many of the individual farmers who owned land along the route because the land is often held by trusts or family corporations, according to the Des Moines Register. Regulators said the names of individual land owners could be kept private, but businesses and governments that own land in the pipeline's path across 30 Iowa counties would have to be revealed. The board should reconsider its order and hold that business entity names and addresses, the vast majority of which belong to small family farm operations, be held confidential, Summit said in its appeal. I love this. They're all worried about privacy now. They don't want... I'm sorry, it's just the whole argument is astounding to me. We are so concerned about the privacy rights of these individual landowners, but we don't give an F about their property rights. Okay. Environmental groups argue that keeping the name secret will only make it harder to organize opposition to the project, and that's exactly what the pipeline company is expecting. Jess Jess Mazur with the Sierra Club's Iowa chapter said the information should be made public so landowners can join forces to protect their interests. Yeah, they want to protect the privacy rights of the landowners against the landowners. The minute landowners know they're not alone, that they don't have to feel hopeless, that there are things they can do to protect their land, that they don't want to sign pipeline easements, Mazur said. And, of course, Summit does not want that to happen. Marcia Dunn of the Associated Press brings us this final offering here in the Bistro Cafe part of West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy. NASA is shooting for Friday, which just happens to be Christmas Eve, to launch its newest space telescope. NASA Administrator Bill Nelson confirmed that the James Webb Space Telescope will attempt to blast off on December 24th. A European Ariane rocket will provide the lift from South America's French Guiana. The $10 billion Webb, considered the successor to the Hubble Space Telescope, was supposed to soar on Saturday but was jolted by a clamp during launch preparations, resulting in a 4-day delay. Then a bad communication link on the rocket had to be fixed, postponing the launch another 2 days. U.S. and European space officials signed off on Christmas Eve on the launch date, or signed off Christmas Eve as the launch date following one last round of testing. Nelson expects a smaller crowd at the launch site because of the holidays, and liftoff is scheduled for 7:20 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. Since it's Christmas Eve, all the congressional delegations that were going down, all of that has evaporated, he told the AP. Even the NASA and contractor team has dwindled, he noted, but he will be there. Already years late in flying, Webb will look back to almost the beginning of time, to when the first stars and galaxies were forming, while also examining the atmospheres of planets orbiting stars closer to home. NASA is partnering with the European and Canadian space agencies on the mega project. There is so much writing on this, Nelson said, opening up just all kinds of new understanding and revelations about the universe. Is there a better Christmas present than seeing the telescope launch? Nelson answered by breaking into song. All I want for Christmas are not my 2 front teeth, but for the success of JWST. The James Webb Space Telescope. How cute. Anyway, I can't wait, and it is and will be a fabulous holiday present. So let's get on with our break, and when we get back from that break, we will go through weather from around the world, and we will finish up with the stories that we've curated for you today. You are listening to West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy, and we will be right back.
You are listening to netrootsradio.com.
Please hang up and try again.
From a point at sea to the circles of your mind, a new force is at work for planetary transformation. New radio for a new Earth.
This is Take Two Movie Review. I'm Mike Friend. This week, Rawhide. To gain Oscar eligibility, Netflix has done a limited theater release for Jane Campion's first feature in 12 years, The Power of the Dog. Named for a verse in a psalm Jesus supposedly mentioned on the cross, this one, like her The Piano in the underseen series Top of the Lake, is a slow build concentrating on character development. And what a character we get to watch here. Phil, a macho yet Yale-educated ranch hand, more by choice since he's also the ranch's part owner, is brought off with scary intensity by Benedict Cumberbatch. Phil has a staid brother, George, a sister-in-law, the sensitive Rose, Kirsten Dunst, and then there's Rose's creepy son, Peter. But most of all, Phil has a secret. It's mid-1920s Montana, and as Phil's behavior maybe suggests, he's aware of and motivated by a disconnect. He breaks horses and castrates bulls in a snap. He torments his brother, even more so Rose, but especially Peter. But we see Phil in the woods, swimming naked, alone, and we get to see his stash of bodybuilding magazines, and we get to know a sort of unseen character, Bronco Henry, a long-dead ranching mentor for whom he maintains a shrine, and whose handkerchief, disturbingly, he still carries. By the third act, we're not surprised by Phil's sudden change of heart towards Peter, something which definitely can't be said about the bizarre conclusion. Campion and cinematographer Ari Wegner contrast the claustrophobic with the big sky and shoot through objects and portals for effect as the characters find their disquieting places. Thomas Savage's novel, The Power of the Dog, may have been more revolutionary when released in 1967, but as a portrait of a tortured soul and the human vortex around him, the movie more than stands up. This has been Take Two Movie Review. I'm Mike Friend. Catch up with us at take2moviereview.com and feed us back on our channel on YouTube.
Hi, and welcome to COVID Quickly, a Scientific American podcast series. This is your fast-track update on the COVID pandemic. We bring you up to speed on the science behind the most urgent questions about the virus and the disease. We demystify the research and help you understand what it really means. I'm Josh Fishman, Scientific American's senior health editor. Tanya Lewis, usually right here with me, is taking a well-deserved day off. Today, we'll be talking Omicron, particularly how vaccines and boosters protect against the new variant, and we'll sum up what Americans have done this year to keep themselves and their communities safe. All right, you've been seeing headlines about Omicron every day now for 3 weeks since it was first detected. It's scary stuff. It's now in 60 countries, travel's been restricted, school districts are seeing big outbreaks, and some colleges seeing sudden huge spikes in cases are ending their semesters with remote learning. Clearly, this is not how we wanted to end the year. People are really on edge. Now we're getting some real-world data on what Omicron does and what vaccines do against it. Maybe that can take a bit of the edge off. It is now clear, however, that the variant spreads very fast. In the United Kingdom, cases are doubling every 3 days, scientists at the UK's Health Security Agency reported. In South Africa, it's become the dominant variant, overtaking Delta. That speed is going to mean high numbers of cases. And lots of cases mean that even if a higher portion of them are milder than we saw with other variants, some are going to be serious. If the overall Omicron caseload is high, the serious portion of those cases is going to be a big number. Scientists just don't know how big yet. Researchers do know that prior infection with the virus does not protect you very much. Studies by Discovery Health, South Africa's largest insurer, show that people who contracted the Delta variant faced a 40% risk of reinfection with Omicron. Now here's some good news. We've learned that 3 shots of a vaccine, the regular 2-shot routine plus a booster, is the best way to stop the spread. The UK scientists found that the Pfizer vaccine at 2 shots was only about 30 to 40% effective at stopping Omicron infection, but a third booster shot improved protection 70 to 80%. That is a big deal. The clear message here is to get a booster. The Pfizer shots also do a really good job of keeping you from getting seriously ill. The research from Discovery Health found the vaccines were about 70% effective at keeping people out of the hospital. That number held up pretty well across all age groups, though it did drop to 60% for people aged 70 to 79. Why is Omicron speeding through the population? it does appear that the heavily mutated variant is evading the body's initial defenses, called neutralizing antibodies. A team at the Africa Health Research Institute in Durban, South Africa, looked at them. Such antibodies in people who got the Pfizer vaccine were roughly 40 times less potent against Omicron than they were against other variants. But the vaccines do trigger a second type of protection. It comes from immune cells called T cells. They search for and destroy cells in your body that are infected with the virus. And T cells from vaccinated people respond aggressively to Omicron, researcher Wendy Burgers from the University of Cape Town reported this week. That was a study of cells in a lab, not in people, so scientists want to be cautious. But it is a hopeful sign that vaccines can still offer a broad umbrella of safety as this variant keeps spreading. Despite Omicron and what seems like a whole parade of other scary variants, people in the U.S. have been trying hard to keep themselves and their communities safe in this pandemic. About 203 million people are fully vaccinated now. That's 65% of all eligible people aged 5 and up. This month, every day, about 2 million people are getting shots. 56 million people have received an additional booster shot, and those have only been available for a short time. By the end of November, 79% of adults across the country said they already got, will definitely get, or will probably get a booster, according to a national survey by the Kaiser Family Foundation. In the military, 97% of active duty members have had at least one vaccine dose. In private industry, when companies told workers they had to get vaccinated, the majority did. United Airlines says 99.5% of employees did so. At Tyson Foods and the NBA, vaccination rates top 90%. The numbers show that most people in America are taking COVID very seriously and are taking action. After a long year, that's a hopeful sign. Now you're up to speed. Thanks for joining us. We're taking a short holiday break to recharge and refresh and spend time with our families and friends. I hope you do that too. We'll be back at the start of January with a new episode of COVID Quickly. Until then, check out Siam.com for updated COVID news. Stay safe and enjoy the season.
Hi, I'm Tom Hartman, and since you're listening to netrootsradio.com, show your progressive side and go to the donate button on the bottom of the homepage. It's progressives like you who power Netroots Radio and keep the progressive message beaming everywhere 24 hours a day. Just go to our donate button at the bottom of netrootsradio.com. Thank you for keeping progressive radio at full power.
This special day got me to thinking about America's spirit of giving. And I don't mean this overdone business of Christmas gifts. I mean our true spirit of giving, giving of ourselves. Yes, we are a country of rugged individualists, yet there's also a deep community-minded streak in each of us. We're a people who believe in the notion that we're all in this together, that we can make our individual lives better by contributing to the common good. The establishment media pay little attention to grassroots generosity, focusing instead on the occasional showy donation by what it calls philanthropists, big tycoons who give a little piece of their billions to some university or museum in exchange for getting a building named after them. But in my mind, the real philanthropists are the millions of you ordinary folks who have precious little money to give, but consistently give of themselves, and do it without demanding that their name be engraved on a granite wall. My own daddy, rest his soul, was a fine example of this. With half a dozen other guys in Denison, Texas, he started the Little League baseball program, volunteering to build the park, sponsor and coach the teams, run the squawking PA system, etc., etc. Even after I graduated from Little League, Daddy stayed working at it because his involvement was not merely for his own kids, but for all. He felt the same way about being taxed to build a public library in town. I don't recall him ever going in that building, much less checking out a book, but he wanted it to be there for the community, and he was happy to pay his part. Not that he was a do-good liberal, for God's sake. Indeed, he called himself a conservative. This is Jim Hightower saying, my daddy didn't even know he had a political philosophy, but he did, and it's the best I've ever heard. He would often say to me, everybody does better when everybody does better. If only Washington and Wall Street would begin practicing this true American philosophy.
Welcome to 60 Second Civics, the daily podcast of the Center for Civic Education. I'm Mark Gage. In 1620, a ship called the Mayflower embarked on a long and perilous journey from Plymouth, England, to the New World. Many of the people aboard the Mayflower were the Puritans, a Protestant group who dissented from the established Church of England. They were called Puritans because they wanted to purify the church. We now call this specific group of Puritans the Pilgrims. Unlike the settlers who came to Jamestown, the passengers aboard the Mayflower were fleeing persecution in their native England and sought to establish a colony where they could practice their religious beliefs in peace. Some of the passengers, such as Miles Standish, were not Puritans, but were hired to perform specific jobs. Standish, for example, was to be the military commander of the colony. The Mayflower had a rough 2-month passage to America. The Pilgrims abandoned their initial plans to land near the mouth of the Hudson River, but instead dropped anchor at Provincetown Harbor in what is now Massachusetts. The Virginia Company's charter did not authorize the colonists to establish a colony in Massachusetts, but dwindling provisions and the onset of winter forced the colonists to land at Provincetown. They later relocated to Plymouth. While still anchored in Provincetown Harbor, the Pilgrims drafted what came to be known as the Mayflower Compact, a document that came to be considered an early example of social contract theory put to action in America. That's all for today's podcast, 60 Second Civics, where civic education only takes a minute.
I'm Rick Smith, and this is Labor History in 2. On this day in labor history, the year was 1860. That was the day South Carolina announced the Union is dissolved. The pronouncement was a direct response to the presidential election of Abraham Lincoln a month earlier. South Carolina was the first of 11 states to secede from the Union. They were resolved to preserve their system of slave labor. Many debate the reasons why and will cite states' rights or tariffs and taxes as primary causes. But South Carolina issued a declaration of immediate causes just 4 days after its state legislature passed the Ordinance of Secession. According to James Webb, author of The Confederate and Neo-Confederate Reader, this declaration opposed Northern states' rights of refusal to support slavery. It stated that there was, quote, an increasing hostility on the part of non-slaveholding states to the institution of slavery, that the Northern states had failed to fulfill their constitutional obligations by interfering with the return of fugitive slaves to bondage. South Carolinians were also upset that they could no longer travel to northern states with their slaves in tow. They were furious that New England states allowed black men to vote. This declaration complains that northern states have, quote, denounced as sinful the institution of slavery. They have permitted the open establishment among them of societies whose avowed object is to disturb the peace and elloign the property of the citizens of other states. They have encouraged and assisted thousands of our slaves to leave their homes, and those who have remained have been incited by emissaries, books, and pictures to servile insurrection. Other Confederate states would craft similar documents. The Civil War to end slavery would begin in Charleston, South Carolina, the following April.
Thank you for accompanying us here to the chef's table at West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy, River City Hash Mondays. We're going to abbreviate the local forecast and just mention that we are under foggy conditions, quite a bit of rain today and a little bit tonight, and increasing tomorrow with forecast of snow late tomorrow through the rest of the week. So we'll see how that goes. So we are going to get into weather from around the world, And weather from around the world is brought to you by a crowd of crowdsourced weather stations that a crowdsources from around the world. London is 45 and cloudy. Paris is 42 and cloudy. Rome is 53 and mostly cloudy. Kyiv is 30 degrees with a light snow shower. Kabul is 38 and fair. Hong Kong is 56 degrees with rain. Tokyo is 43 and clear. Sydney, Australia is 74 and fair. San Francisco, California is 45 degrees and cloudy. And New York is a brisk 30 degrees Fahrenheit and sunny. And that is weather from around the world, brought to you by a crowd of crowdsourced weather stations that a crowd crowdsources from around the world. Vanessa Guerra of the Associated Press brings us this first amuse-bouche here at the Chef's Table at West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy, River City Hash Mondays. Poles flocked to city centers across the country yesterday, Sunday, to defend a U.S.-owned television network that is being targeted by the country's right-wing government and to protect media freedom in a European Union nation where democratic norms are eroding. Among the protesters were older Poles who decades ago resisted the country's communist regime and who fear that the democracy that they helped usher in is now being lost. Many Poles believe Poland's populist right-wing government is turning the country away from the West and adopting an authoritarian model closer to that of Turkey or Russia, with attempts to exert political control over the courts and silence critical media. Donald Tusk, the leader of the main opposition party, called on Poles to show solidarity and change their leadership. The protests were called after the parliament on Friday unexpectedly passed a bill that would force Discovery Inc. to sell its controlling share of TVN, Poland's largest television network.
Je te donne ce mon amour pour la vie entière, la promesse de me trouver à tes genoux. Aussitôt que tu m'appelles, rester toujours fidèle, c'est tout, c'est tout. Je te donne tous mes printemps, mes étés de mer, mes automnes quand les feuilles tombent partout. Si ce n'est pas une bonne affaire, je te donne tous mes hivers.
Khalid Abdelaziz and Nafisa Altahir of Reuters brings us this final amuse-bouche here at the Chef's Table at West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy. Hundreds of thousands of people marched to the presidential palace in Sudan's capital, Khartoum, yesterday, Sunday, in protest of the October 25th military coup, drawing volleys of tear gas and stun grenades from security forces, Reuters witnesses said. Medics said scores of people were injured. Some protesters managed to reach the gates of the palace, and the protesters' organizers called on more to join a planned sit-in after sundown, but live video footage showed those who remain being tear-gassed heavily. The outpouring of protest, the ninth major demonstration since the coup and one of the largest, marked the 2018 burning of a ruling party building, which touched off a popular uprising that led to the overthrow of long-ruling Islamist autocrat Omar al-Bashir. Protests against the coup have continued even after the reinstatement of the prime minister last month, with demonstrators demanding no more military involvement at all in government in a transition towards free election. Demonstrators marched down the main road leading to the palace, chanting, "The people are stronger and retreat is impossible," with some darting into side streets to dodge volleys of tear gas. Well, that brings us to the end of our broadcast period for the day, but you do know Netroots Radio broadcasts on, and we're going to meet up tomorrow for Tarrytown Chowder Tuesdays. So do stay tuned to Netroots Radio all day and all night for all the breaking news as it breaks. And we'll meet up here tomorrow, right here in West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy. Bon appetit.
Je voudrais du soleil vert, des dentelles et des théières, des photos de bord de mer, dans mon jardin d'hiver. Je voudrais de la lumière, comme en Nouvelle-Angleterre. Je veux changer d'atmosphère, dans mon jardin d'hiver. À fleurs, sous la pluie de novembre, tes mains qui courent, je n'en peux plus de t'attendre. Les années passent, qu'il est loin, là je tombe. Nul ne peut nous entendre. Je voudrais du Fred Astaire, revoir un latte Goël. Je voudrais toujours te plaire dans mon jardin d'hiver. Je veux déjeuner par terre, comme au long de golfe clair, t'embrasser les yeux ouverts dans mon jardin d'hiver. Pluie de novembre, tes mains qui courent, je n'en peux plus de t'attendre. Les années passent, il est loin, là je tombe. Nul ne peut nous entendre. Ba-da-da-dum-di-da-dum. 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 Dans mon jardin d'hiver. Ba-da-da-dum-di-da-dum. 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 Dans mon jardin d'hiver. Dans mon jardin d'hiver. Dans mon jardin d'hiver.